Ready for our next game?
Yep, got my character right here.
Cool, what are you playing?
Warlock.
Oh yeah, what patron?
None. Let me tell you about playing the Broken Pact Warlock for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons.
Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Don't let those D&D videos escape your YouTube feed by Eldritch blasting that subscribe button.
And if it's Nerdarchy videos you're after, make a pact with us by attuning to that notification bell.
You know, one of the things you might want to consider if you're going to have a Broken Pact Warlock in your game is a little bit of world building. And, you know, there's a great place that you could do that world building and keep it organized.
Would that happen to be the sponsor for this video, Campfire Technologies?
It absolutely would. It's a great authoring and world building tool to keep everything organized. You can do timelines, encyclopedias, add pictures to it, add maps to it. There's so many features on there that's just going to keep your world building organized and on track. If you're disorganized like us, it's super helpful.
It's going to allow you to design your story, as Dave says, overcome that disorganization by, having this whole mapping software guide you through the process. It's going to make it streamlined, it's going to make it easy, and it is going to absolutely organize all of your thoughts, all of your details. You can save and come back, do it piecemeal, as I would do. It's a really great tool, but that's not all. Dave's going to tell you a little bit more.
Well, first of all, there's no reason not to try this. For 10 days, you can do a free trial. And if at the end of that 10 days, you're still on the fence, you're still not sure, you can sign up for another 10 days, money back guarantee, no question asked. 20 days, you don't know if you want to use this in 20 days or not. You're never going to figure it out. It's just a great tool. You can organize your places, your locations, your NPCs. Can't recommend it enough.
All right, so let's actually talk about this Broken Pact Warlock.
All right, so... I was on a live chat and we were talking about a kind of an adventure setting that's coming up, and it's very heavily vested in warlocks, and we got the concept of a broken pact warlock came up. So, what exactly does that mean? Broken pact.
All right, so I guess there's, several ways that you could have a broken pact with your warlock. It might not be something that you really want to dive too deep into, but what if the patron dies? What if they have been utterly removed in some way, shape, or form, access to your plane? And then you have the whole aspect of what if the patron does not like what you have done? Perhaps they've only brought you on for a certain aspect of time or a certain, goal to be completed, and they let you go. Or what if you decide, you know what, I no longer am going to serve you, I am no longer going to pay you homage, we are just done.
So essentially there's three ways to have a broken pact, and that is when something or someone kills your patron fires you, or you break your pact somehow and you get out of the deal. So, the question is, what does this mean? What are the ramifications for the game? If your patron is killed or dies, how do you feel about that? Do you want to go out and seek vengeance for them? Do you want to get revenge? Are you just upset because a power source has left? But maybe it hasn't. For whatever reason, maybe you're still able to draw on warlock powers, but the nature of that power has changed because you do not have the same connection you did to your patron as you did before.
Warlocks are super popular within 5th edition, and a lot of players dive in because it's a different mechanic for spells. They are the ultimate short rester. So you've got this aspect of being able to refresh your spells so quickly. They're very charismatic characters, so they make good faces, but they also have all of these abilities that they can do. But they are drawing their power from this alternate source. And as Dave says, what do you do if they wind up, dying, or, if the player breaks the pact? I know, and there's a little bit of spoiler here. So if you happen to be a Critical Role fan and are months behind on campaign 2, stick your fingers in your ears for just a sentence or two. But, Ford plays a warlock, and at some point in time, he decides, I am done with Ukatoa. I don't want to be a warlock anymore. But when he moves on beyond warlock, he still has those levels. He's not doing anything with this, Pact Patron anymore, but he still has those levels and he is still using those powers.
So now let's kind of dive into it a little bit, right? The idea of your patron dies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, perhaps like vestiges of your patron still kind of exist, or shards of them that have already been planted in you. So even though the patron doesn't exist anymore, perhaps you still have connection to that power source, in which case you could probably just use one of the patrons right out of the player's handbook instead of using the broken pact. But we kind of like the idea of making up something new and interesting. The other concepts are, you've been fired, but maybe it's not that easy. Maybe they can't just sever the connection because there's they're contractually bound, this otherworldly contract. But maybe they're able to alter it.
So, there's a couple different things to look into. Number one, the magical energies, to have a being that is beyond mortal ken, that has the ability to offer power to those lesser creatures, it absolutely, breaks the coil. When you're talking about these patrons, they have enough level to bestow, powerful, 5th level spells, and then beyond with the Mystic Arcanum to mortals. And if you're not dealing with, some of the Nerdarchy's created stuff where we had these beings who could only only could offer power to, several, a limited number of beings, you have these beings that are beyond those capabilities. They're not things that are typically going to be statted. So even if something beyond, wound up killing them, that power still exists. Whether it's a battery that's out there waiting for something to consume it, it's still tied to them. Or maybe, unbeknownst to, the mortals, that energy was consumed by whatever killed the patron, but that tether is still linked to, to those mortals until that greater being knows about it.
So one of the interesting things about a warlock is, you get your otherworldly pact at first level, and then you get features at 6th, 10th, and 14th. So really, like, if we were to make this into an actual subclass, we only have 4 things to figure out. You could start off with it. I do like the idea of, in the Fey world, like, obligation is a really big thing. And I feel like, devils have their own thing. And honestly, anything dealing with a warlock seems like it would as well. What if the act of murdering or killing one of these patrons actually transfers that obligation to the warlock from the patron to the murderer or killer, even whether they want to or not, like almost like a death curse or something that happens at after effect, so that in itself could change the nature of it. Or maybe the cosmos, the universe itself, actually works to fulfill the obligation. So we could work from those angles as far as coming up with something new.
So, I mean, you could, from just a design standpoint, have that happen where a story, even if it's driven by the player's designs of, hey, I don't really like I don't like the Warlock pact that I made. I'd like a different one, so like this could be a behind the scenes engineering of how things have happened, to change for the player's designs. But I mean, you could absolutely do that where, that obligation is there. The pact has been made, and it is binding to that energy source, to that power. So it's gotta be withheld in some way, shape, or form.
Now, again, unlike other subclasses, you could do this from first level and just start off like this is your backstory, which is kind of cool. But yeah, like if something happens in the game later on, you can move into it. And then, so I just discussed like, the idea of the patron dies and whoever does the killing now has the obligation somehow, even if they don't know about it. That opens up a whole can of worms when they do find out about it. Do they come start asking for things from you? And you're like, well, you're not my guy. You're not my dude. So I shouldn't have to do what you say. It completely makes things really convoluted and interesting, and it definitely would create a lot of opportunities for role playing and stories and for the narrative. But what about the patron that fires you? You know, are you like a jilted lover at that point? Do you feel scorn? Do you maybe have resentment against other warlocks because this thing that you were a part of is no longer? Maybe maybe the idea is you're somehow siphoning off the power of this entity's other warlocks and taking it into yourself. So you've subverted it, and that's how you still have warlock powers without technically having a master anymore. Maybe you go out and you ritually sacrifice other warlocks, and you can kind of take their power, which we're going to circle back to that a little bit later in this video. So those are some ideas. And then the idea of what happens when you break the pact. How did you find a way to sever your ties to your patron, but you still have the power, right? Well, that could be its own thing.
I like this concept of, the warlock who's killing other warlocks to, keep their powers fed. Perhaps they have found a way that, like, the drawing upon the same power source, like, they've got a compass that they can be like, all right, who's got what I got? And they're, just, pointing in a direction, like, all right, I'm going to go this way until I find my target, and I'm off them so that I can keep getting this juice, even though I don't really have that direct connection. Or this concept, with, the jilted lover, like, that is a amazing, role-playing tool of, like, all right, are you going to cause a ruckus, for, followers of that particular, thing? And since a lot of warlock entities tend to be evil in design, going after evil entities and their followers, that's kind of what adventurers do. So, like, that just gives you the DM of, like, here's side quests that you could give me at any point in time, and, run with it, have fun. Like, it's just awesome.
Although, I will say, if you're just murdering them to get their power, whether they're evil or not, I don't necessarily think that makes you good.
No, that was two different options there.
Yeah. So, and also, like, this idea of these three different broken packs, I actually see them as, one patron path, yes. One pack, and this would be like almost like a quirks table where it's like, how did you get this way? Right. Oh, they died. They fired you. The pact was broken on your end somehow, and then how did you keep the power? Even in one of the games like that we played in, I played this character that had made a pact. He was a warlock, but he wanted to break the pact because he gave up his soul, and he decided he wanted it back. And the DM kind of interjected a thing where I could go to hell and confront my patron and get back my soul. And I had the option of taking the soul back into myself, or keeping it in this little cage that I wore as an amulet, and that was then the source of my warlock powers instead of the patron that I was gaining them from before. So we could do something similar like this. Now, obviously, we haven't mechanically developed this yet. It might be something we do in a later video, and then maybe in a product later on. It depends on what you folks think. Would you like to see us develop this idea more? Is this something you would be interested in playing? Just let us know in the comments below. But also, how does your type of broken pact affect how it plays mechanically versus roleplay?
Well, I mean, it's tough looking at this because a lot of warlocks that I've seen, they don't really dive deep on the warlock angle. It's kind of just there. Like I've seen mechanically that they're described using these same powers. Dan, one of the players in the Dawnbringers game with me on Thursday nights over on Mini Terrain Domain, he's a Pact of the Deep warlock, and he's got, tentacle tattoos, and he uses water and tentacles, with all of his, spell casting. Definitely very fun, very, very thematic, but, like, we don't really get into, like, the patron as much as a deity, character gets emphasis by your clerics and your paladins. So, role-playing wise, I'm not really seeing a lot of, stuff that's heaped on, those patrons.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because what happens is it's almost like your warlock becomes this built-in spotlight hog, right? If you really delve into the patrons, I mean, you've got 4, 5, 6 players at the table, and if each one has their own drama going on with this thing, it can suck up a lot of the time at the table. So it becomes hard. It becomes hard because you have all the players at the table, and you don't want any one person to suck everything up, all the spotlight, and unless everyone has buy-in or reason to do it. That's why I feel like it's like that. Paladins can be the same way, and clerics as well. It's just like balancing the table. So that's why it just comes like these suite of abilities. That's why rogues and fighters are so much easier, and barbarians are so much easier in that regards. They come with less baggage, right? Let's face it, warlocks, clerics, and paladins, they kind of have a lot of baggage, right?
Well, I mean, you have an extra NPC to work into the story whenever either the player is kind of pushing down that road, or the character is pushing down that road. It's like, all right, you've got to work this in. And let's face it, when you've got players who choose that style character, it's there for a reason. Now mechanically, as with every other subclass, like, you're just going to have a different suite of abilities. So, story-wise, it's not going to change the game all that much. It's just, it's a new option. It's a new thing to go with a Broken Pact. Is it going to be any different than, Fey Pact, Fiend Pact, or, any of the number ones that are out there? I don't think so. But it's going to give players another option, another choice, if they go down this road.
Now, also, I will say, if you have a patron that fires you, or you break your pact, this could add more story elements into the game, more narrative, more options for adventures, as long as everyone's cool with that. Which, I mean, we've had plenty of instances where we have like one player that kind of drives the storyline in action, but everyone kind of gets involved and shares in the story itself. It's being motivated from a particular direction, which I think can be okay.
I would think with, regardless of what this, pinnacle NPC is, there are always going to be, followers that you get along with and enemies that you don't get along with. And regardless of whether you look at a regular Pact Warlock or a Broken Pact Warlock, it's still going to be the same. It's just who you consider enemies and friends could kind of change throughout the course of the game.
It's a good point, and also for the patron that dies, whoever killed that particular patron is a very powerful creature, and it also may be gunning for those that serve that patron. Also, like, maybe use some of your powers still, if that patron's powers in you, and maybe they're collecting the warlocks, right? So they're hunting them down. They're like a warlock serial killer now.
Absolutely.
That could make things a little bit interesting. So there's one final thought.
And that was, linking back to what you just said and what was said earlier about that, fighting against warlocks. An old, favorite movie and TV series that, I watched, and I know Dave has at least watched the movies, and that's Highlander. Highlander could absolutely fall into a spectrum of, warlocks who are fighting other warlocks, and the, immortality that these guys have just happens to fall into, this, sect of warlock powers that these guys all have.
Yeah, we're calling it the anti-warlock, the warlock that kills other warlocks to suck up their power. I actually think this makes a much better NPC than PC.
Of course.
But, so it's like mysteries to solve. Why are these people being murdered? Why do they want to murder you? Because you're a warlock. One of our community members, Elfbait, brought this up in the live chat. I thought it was a fantastic idea. Could be a lot of fun, and it's just another twist on the warlock.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, to be able to have as a, whether it be linked to an item, whether it be linked to an individual, or a combination thereof. You could have a lot of fun, building off of just that concept. And you could totally go the route of Highlander that you are finding, bodies decapitated. Whether their heads are there, that's completely on you. But it would definitely be a cool way to scare the crap out of your Warlock characters if, like, oh, my fellow Warlock friend over here, same patron, and, you find them beheaded.
Yeah, all that could work nice. You could use a different MO, hearts have been removed, whatever.
Do you want some more Warlock conversation? Then why not check out this video, the all D&D party with Warlocks.
We've been known to create 5e content over on Patreon.
But that's not all we do. We do weekly live chats with our patrons and monthly giveaways that our patrons are automatically entered in, and more.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.